Mortal Kombat has a complete creation myth, not a loose backstory, not a paragraph in a manual, a full cosmology explaining how reality itself was born, who broke it, and why gods had to invent a fighting tournament to keep everything from collapsing back into nothing. So today, I'm breaking down the entire Mortal Kombat story, from the literal beginning of existence to the end of time, starting with the thing that came before everything, the chaos of the One Being and the Elder Gods. Before there were realms, before there were gods, before there was anything, there was a single entity, the One Being, one massive primordial consciousness that contained all of existence within itself, and then it shattered. That fracturing created everything. The realms, Outworld, Edenia, Netherrealm, Earthrealm, all of them are just pieces of this thing's corpse. But here's where it gets weird. The Elder Gods, Raiden, Fujin, all of them, they weren't separate beings who showed up to govern reality. They were born from the shattering itself, pieces of the One Being that gained individual consciousness and decided, hey, maybe we should make sure this thing never puts itself back together, which is, not ideal, because that means the gods protecting reality are literally made of the same stuff as the Force trying to destroy it. Creation and annihilation sharing a single origin. A fighting game about uppercuts has a cosmology that would make Greek mythology blush, so these newly formed Elder Gods needed a system, something to prevent any single realm from consuming the others and accidentally reassembling the One Being. Their solution, established over 10,000 years before Liu Kang ever threw a fireball, was a binding cosmic agreement, tournament. Win 10 consecutive times, and you earn the right to invade. Lose, and you wait. But if you think a tournament system designed by fragments of a dead god sounds stable, wait until you hear how badly it failed. The Great Kung Lao and the early tournaments. Let me tell you about the most disrespected legend in fighting game history. A guy who won Mortal Kombat, the actual tournament, and defended Earthrealm's freedom for an entire generation with nothing but a bladed hat and zero divine backup. No thunder god fighting for him. No cosmic cheat codes. Just a man, his razor-rimmed hat, and an apparently endless supply of opponents willing to get decapitated by it. The Great Kung Lao was the Shaolin monk who defeated Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat and became champion of Earthrealm. He held that title for decades, keeping humanity safe from Outworld's invasion. One guy, one hat, the entire fate of a realm resting on his shoulders, and he delivered tournament after tournament until the day Outworld decided fair fights weren't cutting it anymore. But here's where it gets ugly. Shang Tsung didn't come back for the rematch himself. Instead, Outworld sent Goro, a 2,000-year-old half-dragon Shokan prince with 4 arms and roughly the temperament of a wood chipper. The Great Kung Lao fought him and lost. Not because of some cheap trick or soul magic. Goro just straight up killed him, snapped the winning streak, took the title, and held it for 500 years. 5 centuries of a 4-armed monster ruling the tournament because one monk finally met something his hat couldn't solve. So the greatest mortal champion in Earthrealm's history got bodied by pure brute force, and nobody could avenge him for half a millennium. His descendant Kung Lao still carries that weight, fighting in the shadow of a legacy that ended with Goro's fists. But if you think that ancient injustice stayed buried, wait until you see what happened when the tournaments finally came back. The first modern tournament and Shang Tsung's defeat. So here's where most people's knowledge of Mortal Kombat actually begins. 1992, Shang Tsung's Island. The first modern tournament in over 1,000 years, and honestly, it was a disaster from the jump. Shang Tsung had been alive for roughly a millennium at this point, kept young and pretty by stealing souls like some kind of interdimensional identity thief. His plan for the tournament was simple: absorb Liu Kang's soul, stay youthful, hand Earthrealm to Shao Kahn on a silver platter. Easy day at the office. But here's the thing. Earthrealm's fighters, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, and Sonya Blade, won consecutive matches against Outworld's roster, which meant Shang Tsung had to fight Liu Kang himself. And this is where arrogance killed the cat. See, Shang Tsung didn't just want to win. He wanted to drain Liu Kang's energy slowly, savoring the whole thing like a 1,000-year-old man eating his favorite meal. He deliberately prolonged the fight, toying with his opponent instead of finishing him. I'll end this when I'm ready, essentially, which is, not ideal strategy when your opponent is a Shaolin monk trained specifically to kill you. Because while Shang Tsung was busy being theatrical, Liu Kang found the opening. happening. That's all it took. One moment of overconfidence from a sorcerer who'd lived so long, he forgot what losing felt like. Liu Kang didn't need divine intervention. He just needed Shang Tsung to be exactly as arrogant as he'd always been. So let's be clear about what actually happened here. The sacred tournament that governed the fate of entire realms, it came down to a sorcerer too proud to take the easy win and a monk too stubborn to stay down. No grand cosmic drama, just ego meeting willpower. And Shao Kahn's response to losing? He didn't file a complaint. He launched an immediate, illegal, full-scale invasion of Earthrealm. Tournament rules be damned. But if you think a cheating sorcerer and a humiliated emperor made things messy, wait until an entire army shows up uninvited. Shao Kahn's outworld invasion of Earthrealm. Up until this point, Mortal Kombat was a tournament. Guys punching each other on an island. Rules, referees, the whole deal. Then Shao Kahn said forget all that and launched a full military invasion of Earthrealm, which, you know, subtle. Here's the thing about this invasion. It wasn't some reckless power grab. Shao Kahn waited. He watched. And the moment he found his loophole, he merged Outworld with Earthrealm by reclaiming his queen Sindel, whose death on Earthrealm soil gave him the excuse he needed to bypass the Elder God's rules entirely. No tournament, no 10 consecutive wins. Just raw, unfiltered conquest through a technicality while the cosmic referees scrambled to figure out what just happened. This is the moment that exposes the entire tournament system as a joke. The Elder Gods built this elaborate rule set to prevent exactly this scenario, and all it took was one legal gray area for the whole thing to collapse. It's like installing a state-of-the-art security system and then leaving the front door wide open because someone found a loophole in the warranty. But here's where it gets complicated. Shao Kahn's secret weapon was Sindel, Kitana's mother, resurrected on Earthrealm and twisted into a weapon against her own daughter's realm. Her husband Jared was murdered by Shao Kahn. She was taken as Khan's queen, and now her corrupted spirit commanded armies against the people she once protected. A war story with a tragic mother-daughter nightmare buried inside it. Cool. That's also a thing that happened. Earthrealm's defenders rallied, with Raiden gathering his chosen warriors to mount a resistance against Khan's extermination squads. Liu Kang then fought Shao Kahn directly and won, forcing the merger to collapse and the Elder Gods to finally step in and punish Khan for violating their sacred rules. But if you think beating Shao Kahn meant peace, you clearly haven't been paying attention to how this franchise works. Because two sorcerers were already scheming something far worse. The Deadly Alliance and the resurrection of the Dragon King. Here's the thing about villains teaming up. It almost never works. Two guys who've spent centuries trying to kill each other don't just shake hands and start a business together, but Shang Tsung and Quan Chi did exactly that, and the results broke everything we thought we knew about how Mortal Kombat's power structure worked. Both of them had been serving Shao Kahn. Both of them were desperate to seize power for themselves, and both of them had exactly one half of a terrible idea. Shang Tsung had soul magic. Quan Chi had the amulet he'd stolen from Shinnok. Neither could overthrow Outworld's throne alone, so they did the one thing nobody expected from two backstabbing sorcerers. They cooperated. Their first move? They murdered Liu Kang, the champion of Mortal Kombat, the guy who'd beaten every single threat thrown at Earthrealm. Shang Tsung snapped his neck while Quan Chi held him in place. The most important fighter in the entire franchise just gone. Fuel for two sorcerers' power grab, but here's where it gets complicated. Raiden tried to stop them. Raiden, the god who'd been protecting Earthrealm since literally the dawn of time, he gathered a strike team, went after them directly, and lost. The Thunder God and every warrior he brought got defeated. The guy who was supposed to be untouchable just failed completely, which is, you know, not ideal. And what did their grand plan produce? They killed Shao Kahn first, took his armies, and started consolidating power over Outworld. But the two sorcerers who built this thing immediately turned on each other. Quan Chi betrayed Shang Tsung because of course he did. They built an empire neither of them could hold together, and it all collapsed the second Onaga, the actual Dragon King, returned and made both of them irrelevant. This was the moment Mortal Kombat stopped being predictable. Champions could die, alliances could shatter realms, and things were about to get significantly worse. If you think that's bad, wait until literally everyone shows up to fight at once. The Battle of Armageddon and the End of Days. Here's the thing about prophecies in the Mortal Kombat universe. They don't prevent disasters, they cause them. The Battle of Armageddon was foretold by the Edenian prophetess Delia. She foresaw that the growing number of warriors across the realms would eventually become so powerful, they'd tear reality apart. The Elder God's solution? Create a pyramid in Edenia, place a fire elemental named Blaze at the top, and have every fighter in existence battle to reach him. The winner would absorb his power and supposedly save the realms. Instead, they drew every single fighter in the multiverse to to one spot. The prophecy didn't prevent the apocalypse, it scheduled it. Every realm sent their champions. Earthrealm's defenders, Outworld's conquerors, Netherrealm's revenants, all of them converging on a single battle. On paper, the forces of good had every reason to win. They had Raiden, they had Liu Kang, they had warriors who'd saved Earthrealm multiple times. But when you throw every villain in existence into the same arena, strategy stops mattering. The battle was a massacre. Every champion from every realm tearing each other apart on the steps of that pyramid, and it ended the way the worst stories always end. Shao Kahn killed Blaze at the top. The conqueror of Outworld, the guy who'd lost to Earthrealm's champions repeatedly, finally won the one fight that actually mattered. That triggered the apocalypse. Not a local apocalypse, not an Earthrealm apocalypse. Every realm, every timeline, every living thing across the entire multiverse on the edge of total destruction. The good guys had better motivation and a literal thunder god on their side, and they still lost everything. Raiden's final act before being killed by Shao Kahn was sending a cryptic psychic message backward through time to his past self. He must win. Then he was gone, along with nearly everything else that had ever lived. The franchise literally killed everyone. Every character, every realm, every possible future. The self-destruct button wasn't a metaphor. Mortal Kombat wrote itself into a corner so absolute that the only way to continue making games was to rewind time itself, which is exactly what happened. Raiden's temporal reset and the new timeline. The Mortal Kombat franchise did something in 2011 that most series would never have the guts to try. It hit New Game Plus on its own storyline, and somehow it worked. Here's what happened. After Armageddon wiped out literally everything, Raiden used his amulet to send a psychic message back through time to his past self. Right before the first Mortal Kombat tournament, he remembered fragments, visions of death, betrayal, catastrophic failure, but the visions were fractured and cryptic. His past self received flashes of the future without full context, just the cracked amulet as proof that something had gone horribly wrong. A broken amulet and scrambled prophecy to prevent an entire apocalypse. That's it. His first misread was critical. He interpreted the visions as meaning he needed to change specific tournament outcomes. Liu Kang still won the tournament, but Raiden's meddling with what came after, trying to prevent Khan's merger of the realms, backfired catastrophically. People who survived the original timeline started dying instead. But here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. The new timeline wasn't better, it was worse in different ways. Sub-Zero got turned into a cyborg. Jax lost his arms earlier and more brutally. Raiden kept making choices thinking he was fixing things, and the body count climbed higher than the original timeline, which is, you know, not ideal when you're supposed to be the protector of Earthrealm. Every time his amulet cracked further, he knew he'd made another wrong call, but he couldn't stop intervening. He was locked into a pattern of reading the visions, making a move, and watching it go sideways. The broader ripple effects were catastrophic. Sindel got resurrected by Quan Chi and single-handedly slaughtered nearly every Earthrealm defender. Kitana, Kung Lao, Jax, Smoke, almost the entire roster wiped out in one fight. Raiden's changes left them vulnerable in ways the original timeline never did. That's the brutal irony of the new timeline. You get a cheat code, but the game fights back. Every correction creates a new problem. Every saved life destabilizes something else. But if temporal rewrites sound chaotic, wait until you meet the entity who's been manipulating time itself since before the Elder Gods existed, the Keepers of Time and Kronika's Hourglass. Here's the thing nobody seems to talk about. While every god, demon, and martial artist was busy punching each other across 6 eras of increasingly apocalyptic nonsense, someone was watching, recording, cataloging every single timeline, including the ones that got erased. Kronika didn't just stumble into the Hourglass, she's a Titan, one of the primordial beings that predate the Elder Gods themselves. The Hourglass of Time was her instrument from the beginning, a device capable of reshaping and restarting reality at will. Not something she cobbled together in a workshop, something fundamental to how she exerted control over the flow of time itself, which is, you know, not ideal. Her command over the timeline wasn't limited to one reality. Every timeline that ever existed or was erased, she had access to all of it. That includes the Armageddon timeline we just covered, the one where everyone died and Raiden had to send a desperate lightning bolt to his past self. Kronika watched that happen. She had it cataloged. She had everything cataloged. But here's where it gets complicated. The Hourglass wasn't just some cosmic DVR. Its sands of time could literally rewrite history, restructure causality, merge or erase entire timelines from existence. Kronika wasn't just observing reality, she was wielding time itself as a weapon against its gods. Her motivation? She believed the balance between good and evil had been disrupted. Raiden's constant interference, his victories over the forces of darkness, tipped the scales too far toward powered light. Whether she was right about that is debatable. What's not debatable is that her response was to build a reality-controlling superweapon and start merging timelines to reset everything from scratch. Kronika's realm existed completely outside the normal flow of time, meaning she could observe and manipulate events without being bound by their consequences. She had a front row seat to every atrocity, every reset, every failed timeline, and she never blinked. Liu Kang had to defeat Kronika and claim the hourglass himself to stop her final new era from being realized. He literally had to become the new keeper of time, just to prevent reality from being overwritten. That's the scale we're dealing with, but destroying Kronika's vision is one thing. Replacing her is another entirely. Fire, God Liu Kang, and the new era. Let that sink in for a second. The guy who won a martial arts tournament on a spooky island in 1992 is now literally God, not a god, not godlike. The actual capital G architect of reality, and somehow that makes perfect sense. Here's the thing about Liu Kang's journey. He started as a Shaolin monk who punched a sorcerer really hard. Then, he punched an emperor really hard. Then he died, came back, died again, got turned into a zombie, got reset, died in the reset too, and eventually merged with Raiden's power to defeat Kronika, the titan who controlled time itself. You know, a normal career trajectory. In the Aftermath expansion, Liu Kang ascended to Fire God status after Raiden surrendered his godhood, merging his divine essence with Liu Kang's mortal soul. The Thunder God's eternal power fused with a Shaolin monk's unbreakable will. He didn't just inherit divinity, he earned it through every death, every betrayal, every timeline where he got the worst possible outcome, and then he had to actually do something with that power, which is where it gets interesting. His new era wasn't some vague cosmic reset. He rebuilt everything with surgical precision. Scorpion and Sub-Zero reborn without clan warfare, Outworld restructured without Shao Kahn's conquest obsession, new tournament rules with actual purpose. No more loopholes, no more tyrants exploiting distracted gods. He wrote the rules and became the referee simultaneously. But the detail that separates Liu Kang from every tyrant god before him, he kept his human heart. His ascension required accepting mortality as part of his divinity. He can be hurt, he can feel loss. He chose vulnerability because every god who didn't, Kronika, Shinnok, the elder gods themselves, eventually became the thing they swore to prevent. He even resurrected Kung Lao with no memories of past betrayals. Clean slate, no trauma. Some call that mercy. Some call that playing God in the worst way. I don't know what to tell you, but here's the poetic closure that ties 30 years of lore into a single knot. Liu Kang started the franchise as Raiden's chosen champion, a mortal fighting on behalf of a god who couldn't interfere directly. Now, he is that god, choosing his own champions, struggling with the same impossible restraint Raiden once showed. Full circle. A fist that once broke a sorcerer's jaw now holds the multiverse together. The strongest god in Mortal Kombat's history isn't strong because he's invincible. He's strong because he isn't. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.